Hello, this is Edith Newmeyer, and I am the author of the book The Mystery of Adam. Doing this study on the rapture and the wrath of God made me really understand that the importance of talking about this subject. And so I want to continue. I have looked at when the rapture will happen. Now, I know we do not know specific times, and I said that. However, we do look at signs. Okay, we look at signs, and there's just some important things that we know from the Bible. And one of the things is, and there's always discussions over that, numerous discussions when the rapture is going to happen. Some even say, "Oh, the rapture is not even in the Bible." I showed you that the rapture is in the Bible. It may have not used the word rapture, okay, but it is definitely a taking out of the believers, and Thessalonians shows that very clearly. And I also showed, actually, the Revelation account doesn't show it. It doesn't even talk about a rapture or the people. It just kind of only shows the church before the throne of God. That's all. So the believers are in heaven, and that's the only thing that you can see. And I showed that last time. Now, why is it so important that we look at it? Because I said the church is the body of Christ. It's the bride of Messiah. And right now we are separated from our bridegroom. Right now, the body is not complete. The head is someplace and the body is here. Okay, we are connected by the Holy Spirit, but we're not really physically together. And it will be a glorious day when that when the body and the head again will be together. Okay, it's no good for the bride and bridegroom to live separate. It's only glorious when the bride and the bridegroom can come together and live together. And that's so it is with the Messiah. Again, we are Messiah. We are part, the church is part of Messiah. Okay, and so that is something to keep in mind. So I said that I started with Revelation, and I showed clearly that the church will be in heaven when the wrath of God starts. Now I want to continue today and show again that the church or the bride of Christ or the bride of the Lamb is with Christ in heaven when the wrath starts. Now, I said already, Revelation is not, everything is not chronological. There's sections, and within these sections, there is chronology, okay? Because I talked about chapter 6 last time when these Gentiles or the people of this world saying, "Oh, the wrath of God is coming." And then we see in the seventh seal, the trumpet, when the trumpets start, that the wrath of God is being poured out in those trumpets. But before the wrath is poured out, God says, "Stop, I need to do something." Okay, and that something was to seal the remnant. Okay, the people that will go through the wrath of God. And I'm not going to use tribulation because that's confusing. I'm going to use the wrath of God. That's what Revelation actually is using, is the wrath of God. Okay, that's why I said last time that in chapter 7, verse verse 14, when it says they came out of the great tribulation, it's not talking about the wrath of God. It's talking about real tribulation. Okay, hardship, great hardship. They came out of great hardship. Okay, so it looks like that part of the wrath when the trumpets are blown. There's 7 trumpets, and when they're blown at the end, which is at the end of chapter 11, that's when the wrath ends. And then in 11:15 it says, and the seventh angel sounded, and there arose a loud voice in heaven saying, the kingdom of the world has become the kingdom of the Lord and of his Christ, and he will reign forever and ever. Okay. And again, and the 24 elders who sit on their thrones before God fell on their faces and worshiped God, saying, we give thee thanks, O Lord God Almighty, who art and who wast, because thou hast taken thy great power and hast begun to reign. Okay. And the nations were enraged, and thy wrath came, and the time came for the dead to be judged, and the time to give their reward to thy bondservants, the prophets and the saints, and to those who fear thy name, the small and the great, and to destroy those who destroy the earth. Okay. Um, and the temple of God, which is in heaven, was opened, and the ark of his covenant appeared in his temple, and there were flashes of lightning, and sounds and peals of thunder, and earthquake, and a great hailstorm. And that is end of 19. Okay, so that is right the end. Now it seems like it's starting all over again. Okay, and that's because we're starting a different part. And that part again has within chronological order, even though there's little sections that are in there that are kind of dividing now the next look at the wrath of God. And that's the way I see it. And, some people may see it as this is the first part of the wrath, and then the next one is the second part. But I really don't see it that way, because it clearly looks like at the end of 11 is when the wrath of God is over and the reign of Jesus starts. So the millennium starts. But now in 12, we are starting all over, okay, with the great sign appeared in heaven, a woman with the sun clothed and the moon under her feet. Okay, so when we start reading 12 and we continue, we see again then that this whole thing starts all over again. Because again, this is talking about then the Michael archangel fighting, and it's talking about the beast of the sea, the beast of the earth. And then in 14, okay, in 14, we see again the bride of Christ, or the bride of the Lamb. And then after that, we see the six, the bowls starting. Okay, the six bowls of wrath, and that starts in 16. And it's also already mentioned in chapter 15 that the wrath of God is starting. So when we look at 15, it says, and another sign in heaven, a great and marvelous, seven angels who had seven plagues, which are the last, um, because in them the wrath of God is finished. Okay, and I saw as it were a sea of glass, and so on and so forth. Okay, so again here it seems that the wrath of God is picking up. Okay, and the six bowls are being used to pour out the wrath on the earth. Here it says, and I heard in that 16, and I heard a loud voice from the temple saying to the seven angels, go and pour out the seven bowls of the wrath of God onto the earth. Okay, and then of course the first angel pours it out, and I'm not going into detail about all the things that is happening. Okay, and God again is appealing to the people on the earth, and they refuse to listen to him. They refuse to listen to him. Okay, we know there's a remnant that makes it through, but they're not addressed here. The church is not addressed here either, because the church, let's see where the church was. Remember, we said there was a church. The church was mentioned in chapter 4, and let's read that, because we're looking at the church. Okay, why the church is not going through the wrath. The wrath. The church is not going through the wrath. The church is with the Lord before. So in 14 it says, before the wrath starts, and I looked, and behold, the Lamb was standing on Mount Zion, and with him 144,000, having his name and the name of his Father written on their foreheads. Okay? So, and I heard a voice from heaven like the thunder of many waters, and like the sound of loud thunder, and the voice which I heard was like the sound of harpists playing on their harp, and they sang a new song before the throne and before the four living creatures and the elders, and no one could learn the song except the 144,000 who had been purchased from the earth. We have been purchased with the blood of the Lamb, the blood of Christ. And we are the ones that are now standing. See, here it is. It says, behold, the Lamb was standing on Mount Zion. Okay, now this Mount Zion, is this the literal Mount Zion in Jerusalem? Because there is a Mount Zion in Jerusalem, but there's also a spiritual Mount Zion. Okay, and that Mount Zion is, I believe, is in a different dimension. Okay, and I believe that is probably what they're talking about. Because again, when we go into verse 3, it says they sang a new song before the throne and before the four living creatures and the elders, and no one could learn the song except the 144,000 who had been purchased from the earth. Okay, so here they are what? Before the throne. Okay, and actually 2 says, and I heard a voice from heaven. Okay, so they were in heaven. Okay, so it was maybe the Mount Zion in heaven, because I believe there is also a Mount Zion, because heaven reflects what's on the earth. Okay, there's a heavenly Jerusalem and there's an earthly Jerusalem. So here this may apply to the Mount Zion in heaven. Okay, and again, look at the 144,000. These are not the 144,000 that we saw in chapter 7 that are going through the wrath of God, that are being protected through the wrath of God. Okay, these are different. The number 144,000 is a complete number. The complete number, it's almost like a perfect number, okay? Because it describes more the completeness of things. And again, I'm not that good in numerology, but that's what I heard it means. It's not a literal 144,000. It's a symbolic number. Okay, just like the 144,000 in chapter 7 are not necessarily 144,000. It's just a symbolic number for completeness. So, but in 14, this is in 14:1 through 5. Again, the end of 5 says, and no lie was found in their mouth. They are blameless. Who is that? It's the bride of Christ. Okay, bride of Christ. And they're also called, let's see, I can go to 4. 4 says, these are the ones who have not been defiled with women, for they have kept themselves chaste. These are the ones who follow the Lamb wherever he goes. These have been purchased from among men as first fruits to God and to the Lamb. Okay? So who can that be? It is only the bride of Christ. There's no other group that is described that way. So here we see it again. We see the bride again as standing up there with God in the heavens, and we don't hear anything about rapture. Okay, we just see them standing there. Actually, John sees them standing there. Okay, they're already in heaven when he sees them. He doesn't see them rapturing, but he sees them up there before the wrath starts. Okay, before the bowls are poured out. And there's also right after that is really an interesting one. It also says about the reapers going out, and gathering all the people, and he compares it to a wine press. He's treading the wine press, and the blood is flowing all over. Sounds a little strange to me, but that's the way he described it. Okay, and then of course after that, we talk about it. It talks about the wrath. Okay, and 15 at the end, and then 16, the wrath starts, and then we have the wrath again until Babylon is fallen, and then the coming of Christ, and actually 1619, 19 is where the end is. Okay, and then the marriage supper of the Lamb is in 19. Okay, again we then came to the end, and that's really when the marriage supper of the Lamb is. Okay, because remember I said a Jewish wedding goes like this. There is the betrothal, okay, when the contract is made between the bride and the bridegroom. Then the bridegroom leaves, prepares a place at his father's house, comes back, hits the bride. They go into the marriage chamber, the huppah, and then after they are in the huppah, they come out, and the marriage ceremony, or the marriage supper is going on. Okay, that's when the people come, and they are there to celebrate the marriage supper with the Lamb. Because that is actually what is talking about in 19:7. Let us rejoice and be glad and give the glory to him, for the marriage of the Lamb has come, and his bride has made herself ready. Now, we know that this marriage has started a long time ago. Okay, it started with the betrothal, and then now it's ending. Okay, that's when all the invited guests are coming. They're celebrating with the bride and the bridegroom. Okay, and that can be 2 years after the betrothal happened. Okay, which will be that long. And it says 8, verse 8 in 19:8, it was given to her to clothe herself in fine linen, bright and clean, for the fine linen is the righteous acts of the saints. And he said to me, right and blessed are those who are invited to the marriage supper of the Lamb. Now, he is talking about those who are invited to the marriage supper of the Lamb. Now, the bride is not invited to the marriage supper. She is already there. It has to be other people that are invited to that marriage supper. Okay? So, who is invited maybe to this marriage supper? Well, it will be those people that made it through the tribulation time. They are invited to the marriage supper. Okay? That 144,000 that were sealed, and God brought them through the wrath of God. Okay, that He brought them through, and now they're left over, and they made it through the wrath, and now they will repopulate the world. Okay, that's who is now invited, and everybody else who is not worthy was killed during the wrath of God. Lots of people were killed. There's not after the wrath of God is done, there's not many people left. Okay, that's why I think this church will be taken out. And again, I also said the church is not going through the wrath because we're not destined for wrath. I said that last time. And why would the bridegroom have the bride go through the wrath purposely? I've never heard about that one. Okay, that's just not the way it goes. So, and I also said the wrath is a wrath of God on the unbelievers. And it's not just because they were unbelievers, but also because of what they have done to the saints. Okay, that's another reason what they have done to the saints. So anyway, so now we come to the end of this second kind of wrath. Okay, and again, I don't know for sure. It most likely looks to me that John looks at these events that are happening from different angles. He looks at over here and he sees this, and that's what he sees before chapter 12. And then he turns around and he sees this, and that's what he sees from a different angle, and that was what he sees after chapter 12. Okay? Because when we look at chapter 12, it looks like that is again the beginning, really, of the wrath. Okay? It's kind of a prelude to the wrath. And then the wrath happens in 16. There's things happening, and then 16, the bowls are poured out. Okay? So, anyways, I wanted to just put this out. And because it is important, okay, I didn't think it was that important, but I may just do a chapter on the rapture and the wrath of God because there's so many false teachings out there. Okay, great tribulation. I have not read one time where it says great tribulation, in the Bible, in the Revelations. It always talks about the wrath of God. Okay, and so there's only one time in that's not the great tribulation. It's just they coming out of great tribulation. Okay, just like the martyrs that are under the I think in verse 6 the martyrs are under the altar. Okay, yes, and at the end of 6, no, middle of 6, from 9 to 11, there are the martyrs under the altar. Now, what kind of tribulation is that? That's great tribulation. I would think they went through great tribulation. Okay, but it's not the great tribulation. And so, how do we know what the great tribulation is on just tribulation? Okay, it's just hard. That's why I'd rather say maybe Jacob's trouble, and you heard me say Jacob's trouble less than the wrath of God. Okay, because that's what it is. But it is important to know that if you're part of the church, the bride of Christ, wouldn't you want to know that you're not destined for wrath? Wouldn't you want to know that Jesus is protecting you? Why in the world would he pour out the wrath on you? And I'm not saying that we are not going through tribulation. I'm just saying we're going through tribulation that's caused by Satan. Okay? That's the tribulation we're going through. But not the tribulation or the wrath that is caused by God. He doesn't have any wrath on us, so why would he pour it out on us? Okay? And again, I hope that makes sense. I hope that makes sense. And I don't know everything about Revelation. It's a pretty confusing thing for me. But there's just some obvious things in there that I can say, look, this is the church. Okay, you don't have to use the name church. You don't have to. Just read and see how they describe the group of people. When the group of people is described as that they're the lamb, and I mean they're the purchased by the lamb, then that should tell you everything, just totally everything. Okay, I mean read the description and you will know that John is talking about the church or the bride. Okay, I know some people are not aware of that. The bride and the church is the same. I know it's hard to understand because, the bride is not one person. The bride are many people. Okay, the bride is a collective. We are the body of Christ. That's a collective, many members, and a lot of people they have a hard time understanding. Well, how can that be? There's one bridegroom and all kinds of brides. No, we have to see the bride together as a collective. Okay, as a body with many parts of the body. So All right, I will finish up today, and I will talk next time. I will really look at 12. Okay, I will look at 12 because I started with looking at signs. What are the signs of his return? Okay, and I totally went into the rapture. So next week, or not next time, I will show you again another sign. What kinds of signs can we see that we know that the bridegroom is near? Okay, you see, the church will see signs. If they're staying awake, they will see signs. The rest of the world, they will be in darkness. They will not see anything. They will be surprised like the thief in the night. And hear that too. They will be not only um, surprised, but they will be deceived. They will be absolutely deceived. When the bride is gone, Satan has already worked on an excuse. So the rest of the world will not suspect that the bride is gone. I'll guarantee you that he is already working on that. He already knows about the rapture. He already knows that eventually Christ will return for his bride. Can't stop that. Okay? He can only stop many, many people not from becoming that bride. He can do that. But he cannot stop from Jesus to return and get his bride. But he has already worked on a plan to confuse people once the bride is gone. What has he done? I already know it. Okay? If you keep your ears open, you will know it too. There is already somebody saying I did some research into the New Age years ago, many years ago, and I read some things by Alice Bailey, who is a very big guru of the New Age, and she wrote that at one time um, the all the believers, and she doesn't use believers. He's saying that the aliens will take out um, people that are standing in the way for progress. Okay, they're standing in the way of progress. When the progress she's talking about for this one world order or one world government and one world religion to come about. And the people that are standing in the way, they will be taken out. They'll be taken out. Okay? She has talked about that, many, many, many years ago. I don't know when she was writing her, look up Alice Bailey and her writings. And that was a long, long time ago. And she said it, or almost like a prophecy. She prophesied it then that this is what's going to happen. That these people that are standing in the way of progress and standing in the way to create this one world religion, one world government. Standing in the way of this one world leader. Okay, they will be taken out, and that is exactly the event that will be used by the Antichrist to explain why all of a sudden all these people are gone. Okay, he will say, "Oh, the aliens took it." Now we're really, really close to this alien disclosure. We are very close for our government to tell us that for years and years and years, and I'm talking about years and years, like since the 40s, at least since the 40s, if not earlier, we were in contact with aliens. Okay, and we are very close for the government to disclose that. And that is exactly what they're going to use. They're going to use that. Oh, the aliens took these bad people out because they stood in, they just hindered progress in a peaceful world. These people, stood in the way for the peace, for a peaceful world. And so I believe that when this rapture happens, when the people are being taken out, the other people, they will not be horribly surprised. I mean, it will be horrible. It will be horrible, but I think they will very easily go along with life and just move on. Okay? They move on because Satan has already a plan in place. But I'm going to finish today because this is enough. And yeah, you can do your research. Look at Alice Bailey and what she wrote about this kind of stuff. I was really surprised. That was a long time ago when I read that, at least 30 years ago. Um, so I will talk more about Revelation next time. And again, the sign in Revelation 12, I'll, I'll really concentrate on that next time. So, see you then.